This is a very famous case. This is called the Ghost of Nyack. Nyack is a beautiful town up the Hudson River, north of New York City. Beautiful place. And there was a house there that was advertised as being the most haunted house in America. And Reader's Digest even did an article, the single most haunted house in America. Well, it was a bread and breakfast. And the lady who owned it perpetuated this myth that this house was so haunted. And in turn, she got people coming because they wanted to stay in the haunted house. But there was never any proof that this house was haunted. And it's called the Ghost of Nyack. Well, those of you that sell out of town, further out than Oakville or whatever, you know that when you're in a smaller community and you've got a house that's hard to sell, what happens? You wait for someone from the city to come along to buy the house. And that's what happened here. They put this house on the market locally. Everybody had it down as the haunted house. I grew up in small town Ontario. I remember being on my friend's place up in Laura, Salem. Kids, I spent a lot of time up there on my friend's farm. And we would walk. There was one house. As kids, we walked up the street, got near that house, crossed the street, ran, and then crossed the street back again because that house was haunted. And that's perception of small towns and people's minds. So the people came along from New York City, a young couple, and bought the house. And they hadn't closed yet. And in turn, every time they kept going up every weekend to try to get oriented, and they were so excited about this gorgeous home. By the way, it's right on the water. It's on the Hudson River, beautiful view. And every time people say, now, those of you that have lived in a small town, you know there's no civic addresses. Well, there are, but only for the post office. There's the Johnson House, the McMillan House, that's the Smythe House, that's the Smith House. Growing up in a small town, that's all we ever knew. You knew the houses by the names of the people who lived there. And every time they said we bought this house, people went quiet on them. Nobody said a word. One day they finally got it out of somebody that this was this haunted house. They started digging. They found the Reader's Digest story. They hadn't closed their deal yet. And they pushed for the real estate agent to turn around and cancel the deal. And they went to court, and the court said, no, you have to close the deal. They decided the heck with this. They took it all the way to the Supreme Court of the state of New York. And in a 3-2 decision, the state of New York Supreme Court said haunted houses are real because the public perceives them to be real. And therefore, it creates the stigma. Makes sense? Now, this is very interesting because there's no cases like this in Canada. There I am in front of that house in Nyack some years ago. I actually go all over the United States and Canada touring stigmatized contamination. I've been to Love Canal in New York State, Niagara Falls area. I've been down to Barstow, which was the big famous case with Aaron Brockovich. I've been to St. John, Newfoundland for the Sydney Tarp. Not because I'm a tourist of this stuff. When I'm in the area, I go to see this stuff and find out as much detail as possible. So the question becomes, if you're an agent and somebody says to you, my house is haunted, one, does it impact the market value? And two, do you have to disclose it to a potential purchaser? There's a question. And I'm dangling that for a minute. And the question is a difficult one. And I'm going to say this to you. Bob Aaron, who you know is a well-known lawyer in Toronto, Bob and I and another researcher went back over 100 years and could not find a case in Canada, from British Columbia to Newfoundland, anywhere where haunted houses were, people didn't close or whatever, said the house was haunted and whatever, and went to court. There is a case in Kitchener where it was alleged to be haunted, but not proven to be haunted.